Howdy and welcome to the guide. If you're looking for a build with a lot of interesting overlapping mechanics all streamlined into one button, then you've come to the right place. Let's get started. As you probably noticed from the YouTube title, it sounds like there's a lot of stuff going on in this build, maybe too much for one build to handle. But not to worry, everything is streamlined through our Cyclone. We are self-damaging ourselves with Heartbound Loop. With this ring equipped, every time a minion dies, we take 350 physical damage hit. This starts building up our damage counters on our cast when damage taken setups, which triggers our spells and our skeletons to further our damage even more. Essentially, Cyclone automates everything for us. With cast while channeling support, we cyclone around and summon our Raging Spirits. After 5 seconds pass, a Raging Spirit dies and we take a hit from our Heartbound Loop ring. Also, we are using minion instability to speed up this process, as well as using a Herald of Purity on the 4-link with the new Infernal Legion support on our Herald of Purity. So, about every 3 seconds, our Herald of Purity sentinels tick down and do a pretty huge chunk of damage when they explode from the Infernal Legion and minion instability. This also counts towards our cast when damage taken counters. It sounds like we would be killing ourselves, but we are counterbalancing this through our defenses. We have a decent amount of armor with our flasks up, so the 350 damage from Heartbound Loop ends up being closer to about 200. Also, we have a lot of life regen, so we usually heal up any damage taken instantly when our minions are dying. Also, we are using the Guardian Ascendancy to give us a number of other defensive boosts. We are at max block chance for attacks a lot of the time, and thanks to the Time of Need node, we regenerate 30% of our max life every 5 seconds. I really think the Guardian Ascendancy has been severely underrated this league. With all the hype around Necromancer, I guess it's only natural, but all the changes to the Guardian Ascendancy have made it a very strong option to play as a summoner, including things like free onslaught for our minions and the character, and lots of movement speed and damage boosts. I've gotta say, I'm a huge fan of Guardian now, because it isn't pigeonholed to just being a dominating blow and Herald of Purity character anymore. It can really shine with any kind of minion build now. About the playstyle of this build, we are running around with a decent amount of movement speed, then cycloning mobs to ignite them, get our SRS going, and get our cast when damage taken going as a result. To be honest, the single target is pretty decent, but there is a ramp up time on it, similar to how Poison Assassin has to wait for the poisons to get going. We have to wait for a bunch of SRS to get summoned, and then for our cast when damage taken to get built up when they die, and Herald of Purity to start doing their thing as well. So, if you're the type of player that doesn't really care for that kind of build that has to ramp up its damage, and it just doesn't have a huge DPS in one single attack, this may not be the best thing for you. But I was able to kill Red Tier Elder and Elder Guardians pretty smoothly, and mapping even with really dangerous mods has been a breeze. One advantage of using Raging Spirits is that they fly out in front of you, and pretty quickly, so it makes the build feel quite safe, even on an extremely hard map mods. As usual, all the path of building information is in the description below, so if you'd like to take a look at the passive tree and items a little more leisurely pace, please go ahead, but let's move on to our gear and flasks. Okay, so here is my current gear and all my gem links. Let's get into that. So first of all, I'm using Martyr of Innocence staff, and the reason I'm doing this is because I decided to go like a full fire kind of themed build, I guess is the best way to say it. I'm actually using Avatar of Fire. You don't have to use this staff. Like, you could easily go for any physical weapon and then just add in like an added fire damage into your links. But I just wanted to try this out because I haven't really used this weapon very much, and we are using some spells as well with the cast on damage taken setup. So the adds fire damage to spells adds into their damage, so that's one, like, the main reason why I wanted to use this staff. If you don't want to use it, you don't have to. I bought this one fully 6-linked for like 3 exalts, I think it was 3 or 4, something like that, and I think they're going for about 3 exalts right now currently. So I mean, it's a little expensive. There are some other choices. Like I got a 6-link hiltless, and I think hiltless is also a really good choice for a cast when damage taken build. And I got a 6-linked hiltless for like, I think it was 40 chaos, fully 6-linked already. So it's a much cheaper option if you feel like going that route instead. And you might not even need to use Heartbound Loop in that case, but it would kind of change your build dynamic a little bit. And I also had a 6-linked Kingsguard body armor, and that was also like 40 chaos. But anyways, so I just chose to use this because I wanted to mess around with it, and I thought it would give me my my cast when damage taken spells some more damage. And let's look at my gym links here. So I've got Cyclone in here, and like I said in the intro, this is basically the catalyst for everything in the build. So we've got it, of course, linked with cast while channeling support. This is 100% necessary. And then from there we have our Raging Spirits. So every time we Cyclone, every 0.35 seconds, it'll start summoning some Raging Spirits. See, we got 14 alive. They're gonna start timing out, and you can see I'm taking damage as they die, and I'm instantly recovering it back. And that's basically how the build works. So, I wanted to use some supports that support both the Raging Spirit damage and my Cyclone damage. So, one thing is Immolate. Immolate works with both of those, and every time we ignite an enemy, after an enemy has already been ignited, you start getting more bonus fire damage to them for both our Cyclone and for the Raging Spirits. Next is Combustion, and this is by far the most important aspect in this link, like in this 6-link here. So if you don't know what Combustion does, so it gives you more fire damage, and your Summon Raging Spirits, they do 50% of physical damage as fire damage, so this actually does give them more damage. But the big thing about this is that it gives you a straight up 49% chance to ignite, and whenever you ignite something with whatever this skill is linked to, so in our case Cyclone and Raging Spirit, it lowers the enemy's fire resistance. So that's obviously huge because minion instability does fire damage. Of course, we're using Martyr of Innocence, or Cyclone is fire damage. We're using Avatar of Fire, so we're doing like pure fire damage for all of our spells, and minion instability, and our Raging Spirits are like mainly doing fire damage. So this is like a really important support for the minus to their resistances and also more chance to ignite. And then last, I'm using elemental damage with attacks because this does support both the minion and us. So next, our helmet. I went with one that had plus to levels of minion gems and then a bunch of life and a couple of resist, whatever, and some accuracy, because I'm not running Resolute Technique. We're actually running Elemental Overload to make, since we're fully fire damage, we want to be doing, more damage. So Elemental Overload is giving us more damage on our Cyclone and more damage on our cast when damage taken spells. And then this is where we have our Herald of Purity. So you want to have it in the +2 helmet, of course. And I'm using Ruthless, and then Infernal Legion, and minion damage support. And like I said in the intro, Infernal Legion makes them start taking fire damage, and it also gives them an aura around them. And I think, according to Path of Building, it's doing somewhere like a 20k dot or something. Somewhere around 20k, I think is what it was. So it's not like an awful link, but basically this kills them, and then they explode. Whenever they get to low life, they explode and do like 120k or something damage, like in one hit. And then I pretty much instantly resummon them, like even on bosses, because Cyclone is attacking so fast. You're getting like over 6 attacks per second, 6 hits per second. So like whenever one explodes, even against unique enemies that you're not killing instantly, you pretty much are almost always resummoning your Herald of Purity Sentinels as they die. So I think it's kind of an interesting mechanic that, more or less works. And then when they die, it's feeding our Heartbound Loop to make us take more damage. So it all kind of synergizes pretty well together. You don't have to use Ruthless. Like that doesn't make our minion instability do more damage, but I wanted to give them some kind of support that still help their damage, like when they attack and do Crusade Slam and everything. And they're doing like a decent amount of damage. If you include their Crusade Slam into their overall damage, I think they're doing about, with 4 of them up, maybe like 600 to 800k Shaper DPS, so it's still pretty respectable. And that doesn't even include their big explosions from minion instability. So the only thing is that we only have 39 unreserved mana, so I think it's going to be really hard not to use Ruthless, because the mana multiplier is only 110%, and if you use it like almost any other support, you know, you go over the limit and you wouldn't have any mana, so just keep that in mind. Next, my amulet. I went for one that had 20% of physical damage as extra fire damage, and the reason is because I'm using Wave of Conviction, and that is a physical base, so you get more damage from that. And then just look for life as much as you can find. If you need extra dexterity, always try to get on your amulet. And you do need a little dexterity for Cyclone. You need to get at least 98. So I got a little bit of extra dexterity here, and this was pretty cheap. I think I got this for like 5 to 10 chaos. But one thing it has is lucidity, and this is a node on the tree that makes channeling skills cost -3 to mana. So I don't have any kind of mana leech at all, but because of that, it does make me never run out of mana. I can literally Cyclone forever and never run out of mana. If I didn't have that amulet equipped, I would run out of mana. But this, having lucidity, I don't go that way on the passive tree, but you don't have to have this Blight modded amulet or like ring or whatever. Who knows how expensive getting something like this would be in like later leagues after it's not the core mechanic anymore. So there are other ways to get your like your mana cost down. One would be to use Inspiration support. It's a red support. You could totally get rid of elemental damage with attacks, and that would completely sustain your mana. I was doing that before I got this, and it was perfectly fine. Another option would be to get like a Elrion ring, just something that has minus mana mod to skills on your ring. That's another easy way to get your Cyclone cost down, and then you don't even have to worry about mana. Okay, next. This is a big one, our body. So this is a 6-linked body, and I just went for something with a ton of life, and I got lucky with some cold resist, which helped me out a little bit, and some increased armor. So I actually crafted this myself, quote unquote craft. I'm not really a big crafter, but what I did was I bought a 6-linked sacrificial garb that wasn't corrupted. It was just like a white base, right? I think I bought it for like 50 to 60 chaos. And then I got a few Essence of Greed. So if you don't know what Essence of Greed are, let's look at our essences real quick. So I got the highest tier Essence of Greed, and that guarantees that you're going to get at least 120 to 126 life roll on your armor. So Essence of Greed is really an easy way to craft a high life body armor that, you know, you just buy a 6-link base. I think I used 2 Essence of Greeds, and on the second one I was good. Maybe I got lucky, but this is a fully 6-linked high life body armor that cost me like maybe 80 chaos at most. 80, maybe 90, I'm not sure, but it was less than an Exalt for this, and this is, you know, a huge chunk of our life. I'm only level 89, by the way, and I planned out to level 91, and we would definitely be over 7k life by that point. So this is really easy to make. It's not as expensive as it might look. But let's take a look at our link. So this is our cast when damage, one of our cast when damage taken setups, and we have 2 spells in here. So it's basically like 2 4-links for 2 spells. So first is Flame Surge, and since we're igniting with Combustion on our Cyclone and our Raging Spirits all the time, you get the extra damage, the 84% more damage with hits against burning enemies all the time. So pretty much all the time. And then we're using Wave of Conviction to, again, lower the fire resistance of enemies. So every time this hits something, their fire resistance go down, we do more damage, right? Because it is exposure -25. But this actually is doing respectable damage too. Every time it procs with our cast when damage taken, it's doing like 80k hit every single time, and I think this is doing like 100k hit. So these are both pretty respectable damages. And we've got them compared with Conk Effect, elemental focus, and controlled destruction. I think those 3 will probably give you the most benefit on those. And one thing is I'm not using a level 20 cast when damage taken. I decided to stick with about, I think level 17 was probably best. This does make these do slightly less damage, just 6% less. It's not a huge hit. But the benefit that you get from not using a fully level 20 cast when damage taken on this is that you get more procs, because it takes less damage to actually make these skills proc. You don't have to take as much damage, so you get more casts out of them, thus theoretically increasing your DPS, right? So I can't use gyms over level 67, so is that right? I think I accidentally leveled this up on accident. Whoops, I have to get a different one, but just make sure that your gyms are not over that limit. So anyways, so next let's look at our ring heartbound loop. This is mandatory for the build. It's making all of our cast when damage stuff work. Every time a minion dies, we take a hit. So you have to have this in the build. It's pretty much mandatory. Next, I'm using a rare ring, and I was just looking for something with life and accuracy, and then I crafted a little dexterity on here. I got a little bit of resist. This wasn't too expensive, maybe like 5 to 10 chaos, because it doesn't have like tons of resist, and the accuracy on it's good, but not like amazing. So just look for a life ring with some resist and dex if you need more dex, and accuracy rating if you need more accuracy rating, because I'm not shooting for like 100% on my Cyclone. I think I'm at about like 85% or so, maybe 90% hit rate. So you don't have to go all out on your accuracy rating. You just want enough that you're hitting consistently. Okay, next, gloves. I got some more dex in my gloves here. Accuracy rating again. Look for life. I only got 1 resist on it. That kept the price down for me. So we're at, we are max resist everything, but that does keep the price down if you don't just get like huge resist on one item. I probably got these for like a few chaos as well, maybe like 5 to 10 again. And in here we've got another cast when damage taken setup, and we got feeding frenzy and skeletons in here, and these are all level 20. This is a level 20 cast when damage taken, a level 20 skeletons. And I use feeding frenzy because whenever they spawn, they literally dash. Skeletons, if they're aggressive, they dash to enemies, and it just makes them get on stuff faster. And then this also gives us the feeding frenzy buff, which makes us do more damage, makes our raging spirits do more damage, makes our Herald of Purity do more damage. So and then the skeletons, when they time out, they also do count as dying when they time out, and you get another hit from heartbound loop, so that fuels your cast when damage taken even more. And then also we're running anger here, and since we're fully fire damage, we're just like 100% fire damage. You pretty much want to have anger. This gives your fire spells more damage, this gives your Cyclone more damage, this gives all your minions more fire damage. So and we're also using a Watcher's Eye Jewel that has fire damage leeched as life. So this anger is basically our life leech, and that gives us a pretty good defensive layer that we probably otherwise wouldn't have with Avatar Fire. So for the belt, just look for a life belt. I went for a Stygian Vise with a jewel. Just get some life here, some resists, and then if you can get armor, I got a little bit of armor, and that's pretty much all you need here. For the Abyss Jewel, I have socketed in here, just a few more resist, a few more dex, some life, right? That's pretty much it. Now for our boots. I just got some two-toned boots, and I went for movement speed on this character, so I got 30% movement speed with as much life as I could find. And since they're two-toned boots, you get some resist implicitly, so you get 10% fire and cold resist, and I managed to find one that had an open suffix, and I crafted on some more resist, the 20% fire and lightning resist. So overall, that's, what was that, 20, 40, 50, 60, 60% more overall resist. So it's a pretty good pair of boots, and these are not too expensive. I think I also got these somewhere between 5 to 10 chaos. The big money thing was getting this. Like I said, I spent about like 3 exalts, maybe 4, I can't remember. I bought it pretty early in the league, so I think it was 4 exalts, but I checked and they are going for 3 exalts now for a fully 6-linked one. You might even get lucky and get one for cheaper, just depending on, you know, time. And this body was a little expensive too, but, you know, for a fully 6-linked body, paying like 80 to 90 C in total, pretty good deal. Our flasks, so I'm using the Cinder Swallow Urn, and I think this is a really good flask. It's not too terribly expensive. I actually bought this one for like 2 to 3 chaos. They usually go for a little bit more, maybe like 10 chaos, but I got one with more life regen. It helps. It has an implicit mod, like whenever you do betrayal encounters, so you unveil it. And I decided to get one with life regen just to help counterbalance the Heartbound loop. And the reason this is good is because whenever you ignite an enemy, they take 10% increased damage from everything, not just your Cyclone or whatever. So like all your minions instantly get a 10% more damage modifier. So I'm really big on this flask, on this build. I think it's really good. And it also helps you sustain, because every time you kill an enemy while the flask is active, you get, you know, you get life back, you get energy shield back, and you get mana back. So it's a really good flask. Next, I'm using Rumi's Concoction. This is just for more armor and extra block chance, so I can highly recommend this for your defenses. And then I'm using a Quicksilver Flask, more movement speed, and I decided to go with a anti-freeze, you know, immunity to freeze and chill on this, because we don't have any other way to get rid of freeze outside of our Guardian Ascendancy, so I think it's really important that you don't get frozen, and this helps our clear speed out because of the movement speed. So this is a pretty good flask. I can highly recommend using a Quicksilver Flask. Next, I'm using Doidri's Elixir, and you don't see this flask used very much. We don't need the mana back on. I don't think it gives you. Yeah, it does give you some mana back, but we don't even need it. But the reason I'm using this is because it counts towards your damage, cast when damage taken gems. So every time you activate this flask, it'll take off 20% of your energy shield and 10% of your life. And it gets you know, regen back pretty quick. Like this, I haven't really had any trouble using this flask at all. I think I might have accidentally killed myself once by hitting this when I was on low life. I was trying to hit my life flask and I probably accidentally hit this and it killed me, but like realistically, this in this build, it won't cause you any trouble. But another advantage is that this does give us endurance charges, and I really like this flask on this build. It keeps your charges always going. I am running Ray Spectre, and I don't think I talked about these links, sorry. We're using Ray Spectre with minion life and then Blood Rage, or sorry, Blood Magic, and I'm using a Summon Holy Relic. I was using Animate Guardian, but it died a few times, like two, maybe 3 times, so I just got tired of rebuying its gear. And I think Holy Relic is also pretty good too. It's more defensive than an Animate Guardian. Animate Guardian, if you want to use it, you can, but just be aware that on really high tier maps with dangerous stuff, it's probably gonna die. Especially because we're using minion instability, so I can't really recommend Animate Guardian. But Holy Relic's been pretty strong. It gives you more life regen, and it does spell damage, so it's quite good with the Guardian Ascendancy. Since you're intimidating and unnerving things, they take more damage and more spell damage, so it's nice to have some more spell damage here. But anyways, yeah, Doidri's Elixir, it's really good. It helps you keep endurance charges up also while you're mapping. And then last, a life flask with bleed removal, pretty standard. And I got one that you gain a charge every time you're hit, and that's not necessarily 100% needed. I actually hardly ever even hit my life flasks, but it helps you sustain your life flask if you could get something like that. I think it's actually pretty nice. So that's it for my gear. Just some final thoughts here. Like I said in the intro, you do have to ramp up your damage, so it's not like the best build. I'm currently level 89, but I don't think I'm going to take it any further as is. I really enjoyed the build. It's a successful build by my standards. I like all the mechanics in it. If you're looking for a build that has like a lot of stuff going on, this should be right up your alley, and I can recommend it in that case. It's been very solid defensively mapping. Like, I've had no issues mapping at all. Next, I'm going to show the Red Elder clip. I did not manage to do it deathless, but I think it was kind of my fault. I'm still a little inexperienced fighting Elder, and watching back the video, it looks like it killed me with a tentacle slam, but I think the bigger issue was I didn't kill all the... I protected the Shaper, I kept him alive, but then after that phase of the fight, I didn't go and clear out all the little squids around the side, and I think what happened was I took a few hits from those, so my health went down to like maybe like a third away or something, and then I took a direct tentacle slam and it just, you know, it did enough to kill me. So I probably just screwed up in that aspect. I think it could have been done deathless. I haven't done Shaper on this character, to be perfectly honest, but I'm not 100% sure this could easily kill Shaper, because I didn't really have any issues with Elder, so I think it could do Shaper fine. I don't think it can do Uber Elder, and this is definitely not a character you'd want to use in hardcore. Even though my defenses are pretty solid and we are out-sustaining the damage that we're taking to ourselves, you wouldn't want to play a character like this in hardcore by any means. So, but anyways, without further ado, I think that's all I need to talk about. Let's go ahead and get into the final clip. Like I said before, if you want to take a look at the path of building in a more leisurely pace, it's in the description below. And if you enjoyed this guide, if you thought this was an interesting character, feel free to drop me a like. It would help me out. And that's it. Let's get into the Elder clip. Thanks for watching, everybody. Have a good one.